Howdy folks, and welcome back. I know you've been waiting on this one for a long time, so I ain't gonna waste a lot of your time. We're just gonna jump straight into it. Straight into the deep end. No life jacket because we ain't gonna sink, we just gonna swim. So I'm here in a completely clean, brand new project. Look how shiny and pretty, isn't it? Alright, so first thing we need to do is set up our character. I'm gonna be using this dude from this place. Why? Mixamo. Could not think of it for a second, even though I was looking right at it. It's like 5 in the morning. I'm a little frazzled, but I'm gonna get this out because I made a promise to y'all. So this is the character I'm gonna use, and the animations I'm gonna use are for his base locomotion. I'm gonna be using the mutant breathing, just the mutant locomotion. So, I have internet. So just to show you how to get to those, I ain't gonna go too in depth on Mixmo. You'll probably already know all about it. Okay, maybe my internet's not working after all. But that's the dude I'm gonna use. If y'all have questions about how to get the animations, just leave a comment, I guess. I don't know. But back in here, I'm gonna open this little side thing with that little button. I'm going to go to my third person blueprint folder, and I'm going to change its color just because once this thing starts to fill up it gets hard to find, but I like to have it that one blue, that one baby blue, just because this is where I like to operate out of. This is where all the custom stuff going to go right in here. So I'm going to rename that third person character. If you highlight something and hit F2 on the keyboard, you can rename it. I'm just going to name it PlayerBP. I'm going to right click and create a new folder called Characters. Double click, open that up, create a new folder, Player. Back here, I'm just going to transfer that into there just for organization. Oh, a quick note. I'm going to be moving just a little bit quicker than in my last videos, just because if you're looking at this type of stuff, I figure you're already fairly familiar with the engine, which is why I'm not going to go into detail like this is a content browser, this is a blah blah blah, this is blah blah blah. I figure you already know that, and it's just going to be a waste of time. So, just going to jump straight to it. So in the player folder, I'm going to right click, add a new folder called Components. And then one more called Animations. So in the Components folder, I'm going to go right here to Import. I'm going to find where I saved the model, and I'm going to import the vampire dude first. Because, well, you got to have him in here so it generates a skeleton so that the animations will apply. Now once he's in here, what in the world? Okay, if that happens, like it just did to me, open up his material. Down here under material, blend mode, we want it to be opaque. Opaque. Oh. That word that means not see-through. Then out here, gonna hold 1 on the keyboard and left click for a constant and hook it to the roughness. Then I'm going to set it to about 0.8, just so it takes out some of that shine, but not completely. Give it a little bit of reflectiveness. Then one last thing, I'm going to click this box and I'm going to go to two-sided. But the reason for that, real quick, let me show you. Oh. I'm going to compile real quick. Reason for that is because if you look here, you can, getting inside his fingers. You can see through what should be cloth, and it does that everywhere. It does it at his hood. This material is only one-sided right now, so I'm going to click two-sided, and this will render it on the front and back of the faces, so that when we come back in here, now you can't see through nothing, and it just looks a lot better, in my personal opinion, I guess. I don't know. So now that he's in and he looks aight, I'm gonna right click this player guy and open him up under the mesh in the viewport. I'm going to change this to the vampire guy. He's tall. He's a lot taller than I was thinking, but it's fine. It'll be alright. Then I'm going to select the capsule component and set the capsule radius to about 27. I want it basically just about at his shoulders. Maybe 30. Yeah, 30 looks good. Just to perfectly encapsulate him. Capsule. Anyway. So, now that he's there, we can go back to the animations folder, which is in our player thing. And we'll click import, and then we can just take all the animations, any animations that you get from Mixamo that you download with that character, open them, select the skeleton you want to apply them to, which is that dude, and import them. And then, yeah, got all that now. So here in the player folder is where I'm going to add. I'm going to right click, go to animation, animation blueprint. Oh, okay. Click the vampire lust skeleton. I mean, whatever they're into, but I'm going to name that player _BP. Right click, animation, blend space 1D vampire, and just call that base locomotion _BS. Refraining from making a stupid joke. Alright, I'm going to drag the idle into here, the walking onto there, and the run onto there. Then over here in the details, I'm going to go to the axis settings, horizontal axis, click that drop down, name it speed. I'm going to set the minimum, leave the minimum axis to 0, maximum axis to 450, and then number of grid divisions to 8. Just because it gives you a little bit more leeway to be able to fine tune. So the mutant walking, I'll set right there. I'm going to leave it at 112, so that when you're barely moving, he's barely walking. But I don't want him to get past that and immediately start moving into running, so I'm going to drag out one more and set it about 225, so that all through there he just maintains that walk animation. And then as he gets a little bit faster, then he's running. But we'll set that maybe right there. We'll come back and probably fine-tune a bunch of this stuff. So a lot of game development stuff is put it together, build on top of it, blah blah blah, y'all know. Alright, so back out here. I'll open up the player NMBP, right click, type state machine, open, or select that one, hook it up, double click, open it up, go to here, off entry, drag off add state, and we'll call it init. Cause this is fun, init. No, it's for initialize. It's just basically the entry point of the animation. Double click, open that up, drag out base locomotion from the asset browser and hook that up. We don't have anything to hook to that yet, but we will fix that right now. I'm going to compile for no reason and then go to event graph. Hold S on the keyboard and left click for a sequence node. This way we can have a bunch of different stuff fire off together. Off, then 0 of the first one, cast to PlayerBP. Then we'll hook this try get pawn owner thing to it. Select them both. Oh, what I didn't know the first time I was doing tutorials is you can highlight nodes and then use the arrow keys to move them around. So for fine tuning and all that jazz, if you want to do that, it comes in handy. Off of as PlayerBP, promote that to a variable called PlayerRef, because we will use this for animation notifies later on, so we can sing through functions. Then off of the return on the PlayerRef, we're going to get the velocity, which measures our movement in one of the 3 axes, either X, Y, or Z. We're also going to get our actor rotation off of the return value for the rotation node. drag off, CA, calculate direction. This will take the direction we're moving combined with the direction we're facing, and then return value will be the direction that we're moving and facing combined. Forget velocity. I'm sorry, I'm a little weird sometimes when I get tired. There's the vector length, because we want to measure the length of the vector. That's self-explanatory, I guess. Alright, then we'll drag off the return value, promote that to a variable called speed. Keanu Reeves isn't involved though. Oh, if you have nodes like this and they just won't line up and they got that little, drives me nuts because I'm OCD a little bit. Like that. So you can highlight the two nodes that you want to align and press Q on the keyboard, and it straightens out that line. Oh, that used to drive me nuts. Oh. Looking at all that spaghetti that was just, ugh. Anyway, alright, back over here in the initialized state. So if you're right here, then it's in here. So we'll go to speed, drag that on to speed, and then he should be able to move. One more thing we're going to do, we're going to come back to the event graph. I'm going to select both of these, Control C, Control V. I know you can duplicate with Control W, but I've just built up the Control C, Control V muscle memory to where it's just, it happens. So the Control W does the same thing, but I still prefer Control C, Control V. I don't know why. But off that, I'm going to drag it down. Find out if it's falling. I'm going to promote this to a boolean called jumping. I'm going to promote that to a variable called jumping, question mark. Because this is a yes or no, so it makes sense for it to be anyway, alright, so in the initialize state machine, we're going to drag this back a little bit, blend by bool, and the bool we're going to check to see if the character is jumping. So if not, then we want this to play, and if we have him jumping, then I have this animation that I want him to play. So that's all that set up. So now in the player blueprint, I'm going to select the mesh, under animation, anim class, set it to the player NMBP. And if I test play it, then he's actually moving around. And he can jump, and it's all hunky-dory. I don't like how he snaps to animations though, which we're gonna fix that. So in the base locomotion, interpolation time, which this means how smoothly it moves between these. So I'm going to set that to about 0.2, I think is the last one I did. But over in the player blueprint, we can also help that smoothness out by going to the character movement, coming down to max acceleration, and I think that was 512. I'm going to set the braking factor to 1. Come down to the braking deceleration when walking, set it to 0. And set the ground friction. I think it's fine there. But I'm going to set the max walk speed to 450. So we're going to alter his max acceleration, the braking friction, his walk speed, and the deceleration, the stop that's applied to him when you let go of the movement button. So now you kind of a little bit smoother. Maybe 512 is a little bit too slow. Character movement, let's try 768. 512 was a little bit better, I think. 512 I'm going to go with. And then we'll move on. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. You know how to do it now. You can do it. So, alright, now we got a character walking around. So what we want to do now open him back up. Go into, nope, open him back up. I'm going to get rid of the touch input and that. And we're going to start getting everything set up for aiming and casting spells. Actually, how long is this now? Only 15 minutes. Alright. So over here we'll go add a variable, call it aiming. In the project settings I'll go down to input, add action mapping, get rid of that one, don't need you. So we'll add a new one called aim. I'm going to set this to the right mouse button. I'm going to create a function over here called adjust walk speed. It's going to take in an input called speed, and it'll be a float. So we'll drag out the character movement from up here, set walk speed to that, and then hook that up right there, and that's all we need that for. So I'll come back out to the main event graph, and on aim, which should be an action event, I will hold B, left click, you add a branch. Off the condition, we'll drag off and promote that to a variable called can aim. Just in case there's something he's doing later on that you don't want him to be able to go into aim mode and affect the camera in that way. We'll just checks and balances, they help out a lot. So can aim, if he can aim, which doing it that way should default it to true. So if he can aim, then we want to set that he is aiming. So we'll set that to true. Then we'll B left click again for another branch and find out if he's aiming. And if he is, Control C, Control V, true, we'll set that to false. Alright, now I'm going to go back to the animate. Oh, that's right, I already have all of them imported. So I'm going to right click back out here in the player folder, animation, blend space. Not 1D because this is just one axis, we want 2. Or the grid thing, so blend space. Select his skeleton, and this will be magic underscore BS. Magic move? Magic move. Yeah, whatever. Magic move, and I'll open it up, and then I'm going to drag my idle animation all the way to the bottom of all of them. I'm using, these are also from Mixamo, they're just the magic locomotion stuff. Just downloaded them from there and imported them. So on the horizontal axis, we want this to be the direction that you're moving in. For the minimum axis is negative 180, maximum is regular 180. Vertical axis, so the horizontal axis will measure this way, vertical that way. The vertical is speed. And I think I set his movement speed and aiming in the first one. I think it was like 150? Something like that. You know what, I'm going to set it 200. We can always come back and move him around or adjust parameters as we need. But I'm going to drag out my standing walk back to the far ends, because this is when you're directly at 180, so it's just that way. Negative 180 is the same thing because it's 360. So then I will set the walk forward directly in the middle, walk left to the left, walk right to the right. And then that would be good for now. So in the player NMBP, back, nope, in the state machine, drag up, and I'm going to call this magic mode, because he's a magic man. Event graph. Copy that one more time. Add a pin right here. Excuse me, sorry. Hook that up, drag it down and in place. Let's clean this up real quick. So off the first one, I'm going to just select it, and if you hit C on the keyboard, you can add a comment box. So I'm going to just call this locomotion. Jumping. Oh. And then I'll do this one after we get finished. So right now we're going to check. Oh, and C is aiming. And if they are, then we want to promote that to a variable called aim. Aim. Alright, back in the state machine, we want to go to these arrows that tell you moving this way or moving that way. So if it's, we want it to move to the magic mode when, not jumping, when you're aiming. And we want it to move back when you are not aiming. So drag off, type not, get a not. Compile that. Oh, probably helps if you go in here and actually hook up that base, that magic move blend space. We'll get there, I'm sorry. So I'll drag the direction to there and the speed to there, and that should be all that's necessary just to get him move it. Of course not, because back in our input action aim, we need to adjust some more things. So character movement, I'm going to drag off and say set orient rotation to movement. I'm going to drag off, do RER, because that'll give you a reroute node. Oh, it's doing that thing. I'm going to drag up, and this one is set use controller desired rotation. So right now this mesh is rotating to face the direction the character is moving. So we want to set that to false, and we want to use the controller desired rotation, which is basically the mouse or the analog stick if you're doing this on with a controller. So this will be like a user defined. I'm facing this way now, that way now, blah blah blah. You got it. You got it. I'll Control C, Control V. Hook these up on the release side also, but I'll alternate them. So on this one, we want to make sure that they set it, the orient rotation to movement false, and use the controller desired rotation. When we release, we want to go back to normal, so we uncheck the check. So now when we come up here, see, I can run around normal, or I can aim my spell. Nice, right? Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Getting there already. So what we want to do is, now we want to drag out that adjust walk speed variable, and I'm going to set this to 150 for now, but I'm going to drag off and promote that to a variable called aim speed. The reason I set the number first is because now that when I compile it, it's automatically set to that. I'm going to Control C that, Control V, and let's see, what was it, 450. Drag off, promote to a variable, normal speed. Now let's test out and see how that looks. So there's him running, and now 150 looks good. I'm going to check it real quick. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit faster. Anyway, it looks good enough for now. So, that's probably like the 20-minute mark, isn't it? 25. Alright, we'll cut this one here for now. Now that we got our character input and got him going, he can start getting ready to cast some spells. Jump around. And all that's looking pretty good. So in the next one, we'll start setting up the camera transition so that when you go this way, it moves the camera up, gives the player a better view for casting spells, etc. So, see y'all in a bit.